Hey, if you thought that my subject matter could not get any more ridiculously niche, I hate to break it to you, but this is about to be an 8 to 10 minute video on video game flashlights. Sorry. When you're playing a scary game, or a hidden exploration or nighttime section in an otherwise not scary game, most of the time you're going to get some kind of flashlight to help you navigate the map. Oftentimes, this isn't even something you have to manually activate, especially in shooters. The player character's light will often automatically kick in when you step out of an illuminated area. Have you ever actually thought about how a flashlight you're using in the video game works? Actually took a second to go beyond the, oh, I need batteries or the scary man is going to get me for sure, considered how the mechanics of the simulated light should be working, and then realized that the way this flashlight seems to be handling the matter is definitely not accurate? This is why they fill the screen with fun little quirky little gimmicks. Ooh, shake the controller. Ooh, shake the batteries to make the flashlight light up again. Ooh, you're immediately out of batteries. Better find more batteries. Ooh, oh no. Let's forget about the flashlight. Why don't you use this fake night vision camera instead? Better yet, how about a tinderbox to ease your woes? You won't notice that this point of light's super unrealistic and oversimplified. Perhaps all of this distracts you from the glaring issues. It does not distract me. Okay, so perhaps I'm being a little dramatic. I do think it's safe to say that most video game lighting is an abomination, though, because of all of the grievous lies and falsehood. Let's back up a step. Creating good lighting in a video game is challenging if you're trying to achieve any simulated, complex light behavior. Let's shelve the magic of ray tracing for a moment and cover some basics. Most games up until relatively recent years relied on the following types of computer graphics elements for game lighting. There's some discourse about how many basic lighting types there are in computer-generated 3D games, but I'll go with 4. Ambient, directional, point, and spotlight. These are generally used in combination to create a cohesive scene with a good sense of scale. Ambient lighting is typically used as a kind of base lighting. Very rarely do you want the absence of light to actually show up as completely pitch black. That almost never happens in real life unless you're shut away in a dark, windowless room or in an underground cave or something similar. You'll most likely want to add some ambient lighting to lay a foundation for the rest of your lighting effects that looks a little bit more true to life. Directional lighting, meanwhile, can be used for big, far-reaching lighting effects like sunlight or moonlight. It generates parallel light rays coming from a single direction infinitely far away. That's how you get those big, pretty building shadows on your city streets, or moonlight blanketing an open plain, or neon lights painting the walls across from them, whatever color they are. You'll often use directional light for your global lighting effects, which is to say your overall lights for the entire scene, especially for exterior scenes. Point lights, meanwhile, emit light equally in all directions from a single point. This is as though you placed a luminous dot somewhere in the scene. As you get further away from the dot, the intensity of the light that the player is experiencing decreases. This is also called omni-lighting because I'ma need some light over here. It's because it's omnidirectional. These light sources placed throughout a scene can help to create the appearance of certain types of lamps and so on and so forth, candles, things like that, and also help to impart a sense of distance and scale. Spotlights shoot out a cone of light from a particular point in a particular direction. These behave similarly to a spotlight you might see on a stage, of course, behold this thing, etc. They're often used to mimic flashlights as the sole element of the flashlight, and I hate that, and I will explain in the next few minutes why, but not yet, because we haven't yet met the technical explanation quota. Now let's unshelve the magic of ray tracing. I don't know why I talk about eyes and light so much on this channel, but let's do it again. Light is a particle, but it's also a wave. Photons are the little particles that behave like waves. Double slit experiment, anyone? Quantum mind mechanics. Dual nature, very fast, etc. Suffice it to say, light is complicated. Not an easy thing to recreate. If you want to make good pretend light, you need to provide a lot of processing power. That's why every good graphics card is $1 bajillion, and everyone on Reddit can tell you exactly how many ways you're an idiot for buying any particular one of them instead of any particular other one of them. Ray tracing better emulates the behavior of light in the real world versus the sources I mentioned before, but this also makes significantly more work for the GPU. The GPU has to take into account the amount of fake photons, the direction, the intensity of the light, how it reflects and refracts with respect to what you, the player, are looking at, over and over and over and over again. This is a lot to have going on while you're running everything else the game might require. Much more work than a less correct but simpler alternative. And I'm gonna level with you, even this is cheating most of the time. Trying to accurately and completely simulate the behavior of light computationally is such a Herculean task that a lot of alternative light source tricks are still used in combination with ray tracing to create a shiny, fancy final product that doesn't ruin your computer. Have you heard of baked lighting? Baked lighting is static, as though you have sculpted the clay of light and then baked it in the kiln, freezing it in place. This analogy is not going well. It's like painting how you want the light to be onto the scene. It always stays like this after it's loaded up, so it requires RAM and probably a decent chunk of time to bake on your end, but it's not as heavy on the GPU or gamer processing unit while the gaming is happening. It's like a texture that you stick on versus a candle that you walk around with while the game is running. You don't need to recalculate how the light should be behaving in real time because it's already established that it's not going to change. Certain types of light can't be baked, like specular lighting, which depends on the observation point and might be used for shiny wetness graphics or a mirror. If you're moving around a lot of objects and you want moving shadows and so on, you'll probably have to forego a lot of baked lighting if you want the images and shadows to appear realistic. Real-time lighting is, as the name suggests, and requires more processing power from the GPU while the game is running because, again, it's happening in real time. Most games use a mix of the two. You want the fancy visuals, but you also don't want to strangle the player's GPU. You want some moving shadows, but not everything needs to process lighting in real time. You don't care about the stuff in the corner, but you want a player picking up a can or a brick to show a shadow on the ground. Does anyone else remember when they released Portal with RTX as a big marketing tactic, or is that just me? You can get a very good idea of how using baked versus real-time impacts the overall visual experience by checking that out if you cared. So, flashlights. Flashlights are typically treated like moving spotlights. This is an okay approximation if you're grossly oversimplifying the whole thing. The player carries around a spotlight and moves the cone around, and they go through the haunted house or whatever the hell. Sometimes it flickers, probably. Oh, and there's something else. What was it? Oh, right. They are extremely overdone. But think about it. The power goes out at your place and it's the middle of the night. You turn the flashlight on your phone on and set it on the table. The whole room is going to be kind of illuminated. It's not just the cone of light normal to the table. This is the most obvious problem to me in most game flashlights. There's also the dreaded trying to emulate the look of old-fashioned flashlight lenses, so I basically have the spotlight projecting an image of a painting of the lens onto the wall. This is done by applying a mask to the light source so that you have a specific shadow pattern projected onto the wall while the light is being projected. I suppose you could also make it a happy face or something, but you usually see, "This looks like an old flashlight lens. Look at this picture of an old flashlight lens." The pretentious version of this word is cuculoris. Unity calls them cookies though, so points for that. If you ask me, if you really want a nice flashlight without absolutely trashing the player's GPU, how about you lose the cookie and you cook up something that has a sort of pure spotlight behavior but also dials up the indirect lighting a bit. Have some of that light bounce off of your other surfaces and not just within that godforsaken spotlight cone. Or just go full fidelity mode and go with ray tracing and get some sweet reflections in every single reflective surface and global illumination and blinding yourself for a second if you shine your light directly into a mirror. I know you go wild for your numbered lists around here, so let's go through Gex Personal Flashlight Awards. Number 1, Alan Wake. I like the incorporation of gameplay mechanics, very good. Number 2, Half-Life 2. I like the little sound, and I like teamwork. Number 3, The Last of Us. I actually really loved the shaker controller thing, I thought it was neat. Number 4, Dead Space 2. I like how piddly it is and how poorly it illuminates the area a lot of the time. Number 5, Slender. Anything that helps me see this gorgeous model better. And finally, number 6, Silent Hill. Gets the vibes so right. This concludes Gex Personal Flashlight Awards. Please do not attack me for picking games that do not have technically good and accurate flashlights. We literally just went over my thoughts on this. Stay in the Light is one recent indie game that makes use of ray tracing as a core mechanic. It's a cool idea, but as far as the gameplay goes, it's kind of like delicious icing on a cardboard cake. More like a tech demo than a fun experience, at least in my personal opinion. So how about you make me a better accurate flashlight game yourself so I don't have to do it, because that's gonna be really hard.